We'll call this council work session to order. It's Wednesday, February 16th. The time is 1 p.m. Go ahead and open it up for visitor comments. If you have a comment, please come up, state your name for the record, and keep it 5 minutes or less.
Thank you, Mayor Scholl. Stephen Toski. Thank you very much, Council. I had 3 very brief comments that I wanted to bring up at today's session. One involves resources to the Planning Commission. We all know that we are embarking on a significant step forward in our city's plan. We have a lot of things going on. Not only do we have the normal plate of development requests, but we also have urban renewal that's happening, and then the development of the waterfront. Jacob and Jenny are tremendous resources for the city. Both brilliant people, extremely dedicated to their jobs and to the citizens of St. Helens. And I think, having seen them in action as a recent member of the Planning Commission, I could say that I've seen them work tirelessly in doing their duties and their jobs for the city. And as brilliant and as great as they are, every person has limitations, and the city has great needs. And I came today just to plant the seed because I know that we are in a budget cycle, and there's consideration for the budget moving forward for 2022-2023 budget. I'm here to plant the seeds for consideration for additional resources for planning department. And I don't know what form those may take, but some additional resources. I think that Jenny and Jacob perhaps could make the case or where they could potentially use some resources. But I do think that some additional resources to help planning department will aid the city in the short run and in the long run. So I came to ask for consideration in that regard. No slight on them, just we've gotten big and we're getting bigger and things are complex and they're being pulled in a lot of different directions by a whole bunch of different people at the same time. As far as today's consideration of the request for qualifications, I reviewed it and I thought that some extra time potentially for people who are interested in coming forward with plans, visions, ideas for the city may be a good idea in consideration for the RFQ. We should hope not miss anybody who may bring some great vision and idea and resources to the city. Not sure what normal steps are for the RFQ, how it's being advertised. I know that I've reached out to some people that I know, a client in particular that does work in construction. I don't know if they'll be interested in it or not. And I know that Russ Hubbard said that he's reached out to some people as well. So it's an important step and some additional time in the RFQ may be a good idea. And I'm putting that out there as another idea for the council to consider. And I don't know if the annexation of that property on off of Pittsburgh Road is on for right now, but I had one thing to say as far as when that property annexation came forward to the Planning Commission, it came forward with a request for R7 zoning. There was no request for R5 zoning. It came forward with a request for R7 zoning. There was nobody that was a proponent for R5 zoning. The property owner and all the folks that came in had a lot of good reasons why they wanted R7. We did not consider or deliberate on R5 because the request was for R7. And we thought that was the best idea, and the record will reflect that if anybody would like to review the hearing. So I'd encourage the council to accept the annexation of the property with an R7 zone. And thank you very much for your time.
Other visitor comments?
Tina Curry Consulting. I just wanted to give a shout out and thanks to Jeff Kemp and Pacific Stainless for allowing us to use their docks to get the tram off of the trucks and deliver it into our warehouse last week. That was really awesome that they donated that time and effort and energy to make that happen. And we are getting so many calls right now for some reason, I really don't know why, about Halloween Town and people wanting to buy tickets. That it's really unusual to get calls this early in the year from like across the nation. So I'm trying to get everything so that we can actually start offering tickets super early this year. And I've been meeting with numerous people that kind of make everything come together, from the entertainment side to the riverfront activities. Our vendors we've pretty much closed vendors. You can't be if you haven't applied by now, you probably won't be able to be a vendor in Halloween Town. We're completely sold out. And it's kind of the same with 13 Nights on the River. I've also been meeting with Judy Thompson regarding all of the things for 4th of July. She's got a long list of things that she feels would make this an epic celebration, unless we have rain or something like that, which you can't really guarantee what that's going to be. But a lot of community members are involved now. And she has some ideas that we're implementing, but probably by the end of next week, we'll have a complete agenda for 4th of July too. Things are really just all coming together. Not that other people can't get involved and be a part of it, but I just want to let you know that we have an entire lineup right now from 10 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night when the fireworks actually start. So if anyone has any comments regarding the fireworks, we really need to get that chiseled out. Are we going to be doing tailgating on the waterfront again this year? Or whatever you're proposing for that would be really good to know if you want, because I mean, there was a time when we did not do tailgating on the river. We just let people park there and we charge parking, and then, came up into the Strand Street area to get beer from the vendors or, to eat from the vendors. We didn't really do tailgating on the waterfront. And we're looking at either doing a barge or Sand Island, I guess. God help us. And maybe we could bring it back to the mainland. I was thinking, maybe that's another possibility to bring it back ashore, depending on the cost of getting a barge. Because we still have to figure out that, it costs $35,000 without having the barge last year to produce 4th of July. So I'm kind of wondering if, having a possibility of having it on the riverfront again. And then we move to the island. We've kind of been going back and forth, but I've got to call out to the barge guys to find out what that looks like too.
So Tina, are you asking us to get back to you? Do you want us to meet and deliberate about these issues?
I mean, yeah, if you want to change that, we're using tailgating again or not, that would be one thing to talk about. And then the other thing would be just, is it important that the fireworks are on the river versus the mainland or on the island? I mean, we really have 3 choices that we could look at. Each one has its own benefits and, possibilities. It does involve usually more police or security costs if we have it on the mainland here, because we have to keep people out of a specific area distance wise so they don't blow themselves up. But each piece has its own price tag and time and energy stamp to it. So I just wanted to, if we're going to make a decision that's different than before, we want to do that so we can also call Heather and let her know because that affects her price too.
Yeah, Heather is checking with Mayor Cole on the barge that they use.
Okay.
In Rainier, so I will.
Follow up on that.
I'll give Mayor Cole a call and see what I can find out.
All right.
And a side note, I know we're over time, but reach out to the PUD. They talked about being a significant donor last year.
Yeah.
For this year.
Okay.
Per Jake Carter, retiring. That's
Okay.
who I talked to. But definitely reach out to them.
All right. Questions? Okay, thank you.
Hey, any visitor comments on? We'll go to our first item on our agenda, which is San Luis City annual report from CSET, Columbia Economic Team. All over, Executive Director.
Oh, thanks, Paul.
Didn't fit.
Mayor and council, thank you very much for the opportunity to report to you again. Try to keep this to highlights. I tend to go over time with you, so I'll try to behave this time. Next slide, Kathy. Thank you. The first thing is thank you. Thank you for your membership in the Columbia Economic Team. Thank you for your support of the Small Business Center. And thank you for your support of all the activities that we're involved in, as well as the collaboration of the city staff on a number of projects, which I'll go into. The key discussion points I wanted to hit today are collaborative initiatives that we're involved in as the economic team, more specifically about business retention, recruitment, and expansion. Bit of an update on Keep It Local and the Business Resource and Small Business Development Center. And I intend to leave time for questions. You're good. The collaborative initiatives, I won't go through all these. I particularly want to touch on first and the last. But these are some of the significant countywide and South County collaboratives that we're involved in. One I did not have on there, and I should, is the Broadband Initiative, excuse me, which is really more the backbone side of things that complements the last mile initiative that's underway by the city that the city's been carrying forward. These are all sort of on a constant burner. Excuse me. Some of them are picking up a bit more. The industrial lands inventory actually is almost complete, and the port's in the lead on that. And that'll be the first detailed industrial lands inventory that we will have had in maybe decades. And it's got land grouped by tiers. Developable within 6 months, developable within 36 months, and beyond that. And then also site characteristics. You may think you got 86 acres, but how much of it is actually buildable based on wetlands and that sort of thing. So Gina Cisco has done a terrific job managing that project. It's going to be a great blueprint. The data will be housed at the port. The actual maps that with the overall county map, but also the site-by-site maps will be hosted on the economic team website. Kind of a technology glitch. We can host it, they can't. And that'll work out great because we both want to be attracting folks to the websites. I think that will be due by the end of February, and Gina and the port will be doing some public reveals of that, and also industry reveals for brokers and developers and folks like that. The SEDS is a big picture strategy tool that's required by the Federal Economic Development Agency. That's something driven by COLPAC, but we have to have one, and it needs to be pretty inclusive of all our community priorities in order for us to get funding from UDA, USDA, all of those other folks. That just got kicked off to repeat that one. It's probably going to look very, very different than it has in the past. The housing needs assessment that was initiated over potential housing impacts from the next renewables project, but also including the 4 smaller cities. St. Helens obviously is mandated to do its own. Scappoose is as well, and we'll be engaging and getting data from the 2 larger cities, but that is now kicked off as of this week. COLPAC is in the lead. We're supporting and learning. They've done it before, we haven't. But it's going to be, I think it's going to be particularly helpful for the smaller communities that most of them have contract planning staff, not full-time staff, and this is going to help develop a broad base of information and direction for zoning changes, UGB issues, annexations, all of that, in order to address housing for the future. Excuse me. The regional and county workforce collaboratives, there's really a couple different prongs. Most of us are involved in both. It's kind of taken the forefront because the governor has a workforce legislative package for funding, and the importance of being positioned well to take advantage of that funding and get some programs started in our communities, particularly around manufacturing, healthcare, and there are 2 other hospitality, and one other of the four key areas. And so we're meeting on a regular basis now, particularly driven by OMIC in the PCC Training Center, but also segmenting out manufacturing writ large, not just advanced manufacturing. And then the Travel Oregon Destination Ready Collaborative is one we're really excited about. We intentionally focused grant applications on land side destination development, asset development last year. Although we did coordinate on one for Sand Island, we came close. But Travel Oregon kind of felt that you got the Columbia, look at land side development as in your first destination swath. We did. And we were accepted as, our county was accepted as one of only 11 projects statewide for a destination ready program. And it's a collaborative workshop process. We've had the first meeting, we'll have the second one, I think in a week, to develop priorities, and it's all focused on the river. And it just made all the sense in the world when you look from essentially Clatskanie and Rainier all the way south to Scappoose. We have opportunities to develop many of them in the St. Helens and Sand Island and Marina and Riverwalk areas. And Rachel and team are right in the middle of that workshop group. And the point being, it doesn't come with money. What it comes with is the endorsement and the support of Travel Oregon to go for bigger money. So when we can take the state as a partner in projects to the EDA, EPA, USDA, all of the federal funding sources as well as other state funding sources, it gives us a distinct advantage because we essentially have their stamp and their partnership on the plan. So we're pretty excited about that. The Columbia River is the single biggest asset that we have. And it runs countywide. So to start building around that is pretty cool. The two I wanted to touch on in a little more detail were the small business and nonprofit grant program, which is completed, and also our collaboration on St. Helens centric projects. This is just to give you a bit of a snapshot, and particularly the impact of St. Helens businesses and nonprofits. We were on the same page with the Board of County Commissioners that the 4 grant rounds we ran last year, state and county grant rounds, they were very inaccessible to nonprofits. The applications and the guidelines were set up for small businesses, and that was the emphasis coming from the feds to the state to the county to us. And it just was very difficult to get help to nonprofits, which were really quadruple jeopardy. You've got the pandemic going on. You've got problem getting volunteers, and most of them are relying on volunteers. Contributions were down because of the economic disruption. But service demand was way up. And so not only are they getting hit, but they can't get help. And so we refocused the guidelines and the application. We actually had 2 applications this year. Go to the next one. And we saw a 62% increase in grants to nonprofits as a result. This is how it fared community to community. I would say I've got a couple of year-on-year comparisons for you as well, but in terms of dollar amount, this is for the amount of money we had available, which is $490,000 this year. This is about on par with what St. Helens business is, and the next one is nonprofits received in this grant round. So we actually were able to get more money out to nonprofits in St. Helens than we did to small businesses. And there were a couple of nonprofits that actually provide services countywide that they're at the top that also received assistance. Year on year, this is a comparison to the county grant program at the end of 2020. We had $941,000 at that time. We had it's a little over half of that this time, or about half of that. The applications were up because nonprofit applications were up. We didn't see, and we were kind of encouraged that we didn't see as many what we call frequent flyers, repeat customers, applicants. Anecdotally, and we reached out to folks and talked to folks who have been grant applicants in the past, and a lot of businesses kind of felt like they'd sort of gotten their footing and they were doing okay, and they wanted to leave it open for other businesses. So we had a lot of new applicants this time, which took a lot more work because people just aren't used to doing the applications, and that's okay because it helps us get to know the businesses better. 83% were awarded this time versus 93% last time. Part of that is due to folks not being as experienced with applications and not being able to, not really having their business documentation together and being able to fulfill that. Interestingly, though, a couple of them weren't eligible because they were new businesses started in the fall of last year, and so they didn't qualify on those criteria. Women-owned businesses continue to be strong. Nonprofits, as you can see from each round, it's a little bit up. And so in St. Helens, that's the aggregate that we saw allocated on both the nonprofit and small business front. This is broken out just for nonprofits. Mission accomplished in terms of getting more money to the nonprofits, which we're very appreciative, and frankly, it actually helped shine a little bit more of a light on the nonprofits and remind people, don't forget these folks are out there. You used to contribute, you used to support them. It's time to go start volunteering and that sort of thing. Helens-centric collaboration, quite a bit going on. As I'm sure you're well aware, Rachel Berry is the burning fire behind the South County Roundtable. She drives us hard, and that's good. I believe, God, I hope she's told you, we're aiming for March for an update with the elected officials. And frankly, we sat around, we started comparing notes, and started putting all our data together. We actually have some pretty good progress to report on this year. Last time we reported at the beginning of last year, it was like, we're still trying to figure out if we're still in business. Things were very, very unstable at the time, but we made a lot of progress, and so that will be happening soon. As I mentioned, very involved in the city is very involved in the Destination Ready Collaborative. We've visited and have been working with a couple of different companies on the St. Helens Manufacturing Complex. That's the Armstrong property that is now back available. It's on the market. After a frustrating year of sort of being off the market, but not being able to put together the deal by the brokers and the owners. And one is an opportunity zone prospect. You have to have a lot of stuff in place to make an opportunity zone investment, and it's nice to have them as the project leader on this on that development group. Both involve modular and manufactured housing. And so not trailers per se, but modular buildings and modular housing. And so a lot of trade jobs and some interesting possibilities there. St. Helens Industrial Park we're working on. We've tried to sign three different projects there. You have a master plan that's pretty well thought out, and so we kind of have to wedge people in or try to wedge people in. It's not as big a site as the manufacturing complex, but we do have some folks we're working with on that. And then we're supporting actively supporting HB 4078 for the wastewater project or funding for St. Helens, which in a session like this, you don't know whether you want to kind of be elevated or you want to kind of be under the radar. Not a lot of movement right now, but I think it's going to be a really busy last 10 days or so of the month. And then we're also working with the Port of Columbia County on 2 tenant expansions at Multnomah Business Park here in St. Helens, and very active with the St. Helens Main Street, principally through Keep It Local, but on some other things as that organization gets up and running. In countywide business recruitment, retention, and expansion, we've really elevated the focus on advanced manufacturing, emphasizing OMIC and training center. There was a Oregon Business sponsored an issue of Site Selector magazine, national publication, actually international publication. There's an Oregon-centric issue. I just got the link today or yesterday for the digital issue, and I'll distribute that around. We partnered with the utility, also City of Scappoose and OMIC on a double-page ad in that publication. As long as you're going to have a targeted issue, you may as well be in it, and we're the only manufacturing innovation center in the state. So we took advantage of that opportunity, negotiated a discount and got a good deal. So that's kind of the first step in really re-elevating the advanced manufacturing. We have 3 active industrial projects we're working on. One that I may have told you about before, it's gone away and come back 3 times, and it's an food agricultural project. We're still looking at a site in Scappoose, a site in Deer Island, just outside of St. Helens, and a couple of sites in Rainier. Very transportation oriented because their markets are Seattle and Portland. And so we're delighted. It's tough to get folks to focus on us. It's really tough to get them to take a second look, and when they come back 3 times, they're good things, and we can really dig into the details. And so we're working very actively on that one. We've got excuse me, a number of businesses expanding. We've connected them with resources. We don't have finance tools or anything like that. But the most encouraging thing is businesses are starting to expand. And you got one example in Crooked Creek, which it's been a brewery for 1.5 years, 2 years. They'll now have a retail location, tasting room in St. Helens. And there are a number of other small business examples like that. So it's a great thing to see happening organically. We're of course coordinating with the port on the lands inventory as well as their project and all of the cities. We got something going on in each city and also with the county. Increasingly, and this is before the small business center happened, but I think it came out of a lot of the talk and the discussion about the small business center. Plus, I think it's also a result of businesses not just looking for grants, but looking for assistance to grow. Many more connections we're making with the statewide small business center and the capital access team for secondary financing and financing programs. And then of course we're very involved in the Next Renewables project in terms of supporting the permitting processes on that. The county unanimously approved the land use decisions. We're all confident that will be appealed, but we feel pretty strongly about the decisions being upheld, even with additional conditions. Once that's out in writing, then DEQ can release its permit for review. DSL can release its permit for review, and all of this demonstrates progress to an investment group that is probably shown more patience than a lot of investment projects would or groups would in terms of how long it takes things to work through the Oregon process, and they're not from here. So good solid application, a lot of great, I think probably close to 30 conditions set on the permits from the county, which means it's going to be a pretty responsibly done project. So we're still pushing for that and hopeful that will happen. Keep it local. Last time I was here, I was telling you about our transition to a new director, and she's going great guns. Very successful holiday campaign. I usually bring a bunch of statistics with me. I didn't this time, but I'm happy to get those to you, as well as she's been doing business and consumer surveys. There's some very interesting data broken out of those. But the holiday campaign was about 9 or 10 times the size in terms of spending and participation than we've had in the past. Got a significant grant from Business Oregon, the Rural Opportunity Initiative. So we're going to completely redo the Keep It Local website. It'll be a business aggregator and a search engine for businesses in addition to just a directory. There's a little bit of rebranding and refresh work going to take place as a part of that. And that'll all be free, and we're deliberately designing the website so it's incredibly easy for businesses to update their own information on the website, keep it current. You know, it's a website, so we're targeting May 1st, and I'm hoping it'll be done by June 1st, but it's going to be a good one. And then also part of that grant is a free digital education program. We're partnering with an organization to put on free digital workshops, classes, seminars, everything from, we have businesses that don't really have websites. It could be one of their best store days is to have a website up. Everything from the basic to the fairly sophisticated, and we'll be involving local vendors, but also email marketing, digital marketing, social media marketing. Just get folks introduced to it, put some new tools in their hands, and it'll all be free. And we're hopeful that we'll be able to do a session in each community. Tends to work a little bit better when it's smaller groups and they're folks that are used to interacting with each other rather than trying to get people all grouped together. But that series is funded. That'll run all the way through June of 2023. As I mentioned, Sierra's always a big believer in information is power, and she's always doing business and consumer surveys, and so we're building kind of a database of trends and behavioral trends, and we can make those available as well. Working on a small business week event. Do you plan an event? Or do you not plan an event? We'll be doing something around Small Business Week in May. There's a little bit of temerity about trying to get everybody in a gathering, but we'd like to think that maybe it's getting to be time to get people together and sort of celebrate small business and collaborate with the chambers on some awards and that sort of thing. And then it makes perfect sense for Keep It Local to be aligning with the Small Business Center as that gets off the ground. A lot of synergy, a lot of support, and kind of gives us another body to throw at the Small Business Center as well. So that alignment is happening, which brings us to the Small Business Resource Center. As you know, all of these things that we've talked about, the City of St. Helens and this council was the first investor in the Small Business Center. And we ended up getting 5 cities. We almost have Rainier. They put it in their budget for next year, recommended budget for next year. So we think we'll get Rainier as well, as well as the county, some private commitments. And then of course, almost 45% of the funding, will come from the statewide business network. We're just waiting on Congress for a big tranche that we may hear about by March 11th. The real-time today update is we are waiting for Congress. We've already begun onboarding. There's a lot of systems and performance metrics and accountability that comes with this, which we think is very, very good. We have full access to all the network resources and the capital access team and all their software and all their tools and the training tools and existing workshops and that sort of thing. Permanent location is under development. We're discussing with the county locating in the John Gunn building as part of their commitment to sustaining the center. And starting March 1, we'll kind of have a hybrid remote on the streets, get out and meet folks, start to the Small Business Center. As I mentioned, aligning with Keep It Local, and we're onboarding Keep It Local. And as of this week, we did announce that we have hired the new director, somebody you probably know, but I'd like to also introduce today, Jason Mose, who is, you now know as the director of the Business Resource and Small Business Development Center in Columbia County. There we have it. Jason, stand up.
And unmasked.
Yeah, we get.
Mayor, council members, nice to see you, some familiar faces, I'm really excited. I think I'm actually gonna have to buy Paul a spa day because of all the wonderful things he said about me, I think he's hit the point of exhaustion. But super excited to hit the ground running March 1st and continue serving our community, so thanks for having me.
Well, we're delighted to have Jason, and just so that you know, he's not just that guy we all know that was standing on the street corner. He made it through 3 rounds of interviews, 36 applicants from, I thought it was 4, it's actually 5 states. And the interviews included the Small Business Development Center Director, as well as the PCC Small Business Center Director. So it was a grueling process. There were times, I know Jason pretty well, but there were times I thought, I don't know if he's bringing what they wanted to bring and that sort of thing. And he came through with flying colors, did a great job, and we couldn't be more delighted to have someone we know and someone who knows so much about our community and all our small businesses, as you know, to kick this thing off, really get it started and get it traction fast. So anyway, with that, I will quiet down and ask if there are any questions. Yes, sir.
How you doing? And I want to thank you for being here and giving this great report today. It does my heart great. As a charter member, counts as a board member of CSTAT when it took off with David Stalker years back. An issue came up in terms of the enterprise zone and expansion of the enterprise zone so that SCAP-HOOS could actually utilize the services of our enterprise zone. We did that, and this is when the economy tanked to a point where it was an issue of despair.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was interesting as a CSTAT board member, a city council member, to take this a little further. They spearheaded efforts to the League of Oregon Cities to be part of their convention, their annual convention, and do a breakout session. A whole idea of economic development, a collaborative approach.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea was to get the David Stalker, who was CSTAT at that time, and our port director, Patrick Trapp, at that time, and our SCAP-HOOS city manager, and myself as a counselor to spearhead this workshop as a breakout session. It was one of the most celebrated sessions and the most widely attended during that time. And it just goes to show how many cities in the state were actually trying to do different things to build the economy. So now I hear this report, and I'm off the board, obviously, and we have 2 great members on the board representing our council. And it's just, I feel elated. I just feel so good about where this has gone since year 1 to now. And I can't thank you enough for coming forward.
Thank you for getting it started.
I do have one additional comment to make about brainstorming. And did you know that one of the reasons that this person voted to purchase, for the city to purchase Boise Cascade, the 280 some acres of Boise Cascade for $1.5 million. And that actually was a $3 million purchase. And Cascade Tissue is paying off half of that as time goes on. So it's actually a $1.5 million purchase. But the reason this counselor was so supportive of that program was that came with a 40 million gallon a day water permit from the Columbia River Slough. 40 million gallons a day. And I thought at that time, I go, and there was a water crisis in California, there was water crises all over the world, there was all kinds of issues. 40 million gallons for industrial and agricultural use. And I want you to know that. And I'd really like to see some brainstorming of where we could really realize assets from that, other than just locally. But it's there, and it's to me, water worldwide is more valuable than fossil fuels at this point. So I just want to say that.
Well, I appreciate that, and I didn't know that. I would sit here and suggest that 40 million gallons a day was probably worth the sale price alone.
That's what I thought at that
and
time.
I would also say that, one of our challenges here is we have a fair amount of industrial land, but a lot of it is privately held. And so that adds many layers of complication to making a deal and getting clients in here. And that industrial site, and there's a master plan around it, and it's moving forward, is increasingly drawing attention, largely because it's publicly owned.
Anyway,
So thanks for doing that.
I planted that seed if you didn't know. And
I didn't know, but I do now. Thank you.
You talked about the digital update or learning for business. Hopefully you realize we have a fairly unique computer center available at the library. Position it at. Hopefully you'll.
I'm very aware because they would love to expand and push me out of my office.
That's correct. Absolutely.
And we'll give them the opportunity soon, but no, I put my head in there, and no, and that is, I mean, we haven't talked to them yet, but that's obviously a natural place to hold that session, and we don't really have another one of those in any of the other communities in the county, but yes, we are aware of that, and I think not just for that series, but also there will be ongoing workshops like that with the small business center as well.
And we have a seminar room real close, right across from your office.
Yep. Yes, I'm surrounded, and I'm being gentrified.
That's correct.
I don't have anything.
So when you talked about the collaboration of meeting in March, you're talking about the city county dinner, correct? What it used to be? Like Rachel brainstorming that you're hoping that it was in March.
Maybe it's, I don't know, she's gonna probably, okay, whatever John says.
Yeah.
Um, I take my direction from Rachel, I don't ask her a lot of questions. I do recall now there's some discussion about coinciding those things. I mean, last time we came through and we did PowerPoint presentations remotely with each of the councils, and that wasn't great because we missed out on the brainstorming aspect of that. So yeah, if we can combine that with the city county, yeah, that's a great thing.
Yeah. So I think that's what she's talking about bringing back, and then opportunity zones. I think she on this every time. You did actually send me a card.
I did.
Yes,
I got them nailed down.
I appreciate
nailed
it. I just think our industrial property, and it has 4 pumps on a pump house that actually draws right out of the Multnomah Channel there. It has a ton of water with a big, huge water filtration system built and a huge holding tank. So Council President Morton is absolutely right that it has available a lot of water. Two of those pumps are old school diesel, so when power goes out, they automatically keep on. And so it's never ending water no matter what is going on.
Hopefully in a year and a half or 2, we can fire those things up with renewable diesel and not have to truck it.
That'd be great.
No, it is, in some respects, it's frustrating because there's so much potential there, But it's so nice to see the city going about it in such a planful way, so that we're not just trying to wedge this in or do that or do this or do that. And so, sometimes you can get impatient, but it is so much better to be able to tell someone, you don't fit here because there's a plan, and phase 2 is the one for you, but you don't fit. Let's go talk about someplace else because there is a plan.
You're well aware that LA is starting to reuse their gray water for many things in the city because the problem that California has with water supply. They're not even being able to get everything they need from the Colorado like they used to. You may want to buy some super oil tankers and haul the water from there or from here to there.
So, yeah, it was a great report. I mean, what we used to get from KeySat, compared to what it is now, since you've taken over, is a really good report, very professional, and thank you for being a service to our community. And Jason, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So,
Well, thank you for your support.
Appreciate it and welcome as well. Appreciate it.
okay, our next item is to review community grant applications received. And I apologize, I left my tablet at home, but I did look them over. And I had a question on one of them. That was the team mentor from Scappoose. Is that something that outreaches into our area? Or? Okay, that's what,
They do support St. Helens residents. She called to make sure that that was okay for her to apply.
okay, yeah, that's all I had a concern with on that one.
Well, I read over Kathy's memo, so we're obviously a little strapped here for cash.
Yes.
So
Yes. Well, I think we're just gonna have to go with what we have left and decide how we're gonna disperse it.
yeah.
Yeah.
One option was, I mean, if you split it up between everyone who requested $250 each, that hits the budget. That's an option, unless we would rather just pick a few and give them more money. I don't know.
I certainly read through that and I started to do like kind of accumulate a hierarchy of importance.
Yeah.
And to me, with the issues of, I read very thoroughly, but community health I had in mind, and that deals with our homeless situation. And it's they're only asking for like $684.70. And are we doing anything about homeless? Well, giving them the $684.70, we're doing what we can. And please read through that in a report of where that money goes. I think it's well researched and well designed, and so for mental health, I would like to see that paid in full. I also think that there are other issues that we can work with, and I especially think the most important for me is the two that are on the top and on the bottom that are asking the least. And so those would be my two picks right there. So please read through those before we do decide, and I think they're well explained.
What do we have left in our budget?
20, Kathy gave us a note on
She
it.
said we have 1,000 left to.
Kathy, can you read what you gave
1,500.
to us by chance?
Okay, as of February 8th, the city council has a $3,945 balance in the community support funds budget. Please keep in mind that this fund is used for other expenses than just the grants. For instance, the If I Were Mayor contest and Citizens Day in the Park are funded through this.
Those two.
Last year's If I Were Mayor expenses were $916 and the Citizens Day in the Park were about $1,000. So you have if you saved, kept money in there for those two things, then you would have $1,500 left for the drains.
When's our Citizens Day? What day did we shoot for that?
June 25th.
Okay, so is it might actually be overlapping in the budget cycle, two different budget cycles, so we could actually probably,
It's our next grant cycle.
we have flexibility. So what I'm saying is we have a little flexibility. I would say probably we got about $2,000 to spend. We'd have a little flexibility in our budget cycle too.
Just one thing before you go too farther, I don't, I want to make sure I'm dotting the i's and crossing the t's. I guess we have just need to, I and my wife are gonna be participating in the CERT training that's coming.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be in CERT, so I guess I just say that, so I don't have, I guess, an economic interest and stuff now, I just say, but I'm just saying for my part in decision making, whether or not I need to, whether or not I can participate in the deliberation.
They were actually gonna be my third one after.
Exactly, and
Yes.
they're involved in community projects.
Yeah.
And I got to a point when I was reading that the radios and a few other kinds of things of signage and that kind of thing. And I started to think, well, is that really important compared to the homeless and compared to United?
I don't think that's what he's saying.
Okay, yeah, I think, sorry, what I'm saying is because I'm gonna be part of this
Right.
group. Is it appropriate, is there conflict, is it appropriate, I just need
No,
to say
They're not.
that I can be involved in this.
Yes, you can absolutely be.
Without a
there's
doubt.
no
Well, in
That's all
the
it's-
same light with
There's no-
CCMH
there's
for
no
me, but
conflict.
this is a profit to the
Yeah,
clients,
but
not to
no,
my monetary
No,
gain.
there's
Just
no-
to make that very
And
clear.
on the same token, read up on what they want.
Yeah,
And if there's something important there that you feel is important, like I feel those two are extremely important
There's no bias though.
Right,
for the price.
I see what you're saying.
right,
Yeah,
so, yeah,
totally get it.
that's just all.
I thought the same as CCMH.
So, yeah, as much as I think, as you mentioned, Morton, about the unhoused population, the importance of that, and for mental health, I guess if you're needing to prioritize and in view of 7,000 to 250 would be a drop in the bucket for CERT, so I think that might be something we want to give more to others.
So what if we went like this? What if we went to 684, 500 for United, 500 for,
Can I jump in on the United?
yeah,
The Dolly Parton, the library does a fair amount of getting stuff from them.
Uh-huh.
And I was surprised that the United Way was interested in basically doing the same thing.
No, they have run it. I'm really good friends with Claire Cat, who runs that program, and that has been something United Way has done since the beginning. They are
That was a
branch,
question.
they are the branch for Columbia County for the Dolly Parton
And then
Library.
it goes to the library, as compared to going to
Well,
the
it
library.
goes to the whole community,
I
so
know, but,
my daughter gets a book every month from the Dolly Parton.
yeah, I know. The question is, so the Dolly Parton goes to the United Way, and then it's dispersed to the libraries, as compared to going to the libraries, being dispersed to the community.
But it's not dispersed to the library.
It doesn't go to the library.
I know,
to the whole
but
community.
they do a bunch of the bookwork for it. They can work.
Oh, I'm not sure about that part. You might know more about that back end,
But
but
as
I
I
just
say,
know that United Way is.
they're coupled together, and I didn't know which way the, let's say, money flow of that went. That was the question.
Yeah, United Way does the.
I'm liking where Rick is going, or Mayor's going, he's added up the two on the top and the bottom and dispersing the rest of the money amongst the others. I like that, I see. where
yeah,
you're
my
going.
wheels are turning. So I'm just looking at the Community Action United Way, CERT 500 as well. And then Riverside, Abby Olson that's a really good project for foster families. At least like to do would be 400, would be $2,084.70, which would leave us $1,010 basically in our council funds. And we would have enough to budget our, because it's on the 26th, budget cycle goes July 1st for our Citizens Day, because we actually are double dipping on our Citizens Day on this budget cycle. We spent last year started on this budget cycle too.
Well, how early do we need to purchase things for Citizens Day? Months out? I mean,
Well, we'd have
probably
that,
knows.
we'd have
We'd
plenty
have a
there.
month though.
We'd have money there.
Some of the stuff comes after.
A lot
If
comes
we get
after.
invoice.
Yeah, a
there
lot comes
might be
after.
some after.
Okay, okay.
We do as much as we can, sponsorships and donations, but it's just hard to know.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
And then I realized, that if I were mayor contest, if we don't do our pizza party till next fiscal year, that
Yeah.
will save us a good amount.
Yep.
Couple hundred,
Yes, and it probably will be after, yes.
usually after July.
And then do we have some type of a response back to like maybe some of these bigger applicants about why, like, like, for instance, for CERT, are we gonna just, like, how do we respond back to them? Like, hey, you're asking for $7,000. That's probably not
I-
something realistic for this type of a grant.
Just wonder if we just don't go to an annual cycle like they used to, the old council used to do.
What do you
And
mean?
I think
Just
when we
one
ask for that, to keep it at below $1,000 if
Yeah.
possible.
Just so
And
that
then-
people know kind of what
Exactly.
our expectations are for these applications too.
It isn't our expectations, what our ability.
Yes, our ability, yes. Mhm.
When you can ask for $1 million, but we got 17 cents, want it or not.
Yeah,
Sure, right, that we would maybe put a cap on what they can
Yeah.
request.
I don't think that's an excuse, that's the reality.
So in moving forward tonight, Kathy, did you write down 684, 500, 500, and then 400 to Abby Olson?
Yeah.
So that'd be for tonight. Vote.
so nothing for the teen mentor program.
It's tough because there, we just don't have it there. We want to at least make 400 to the foster families, we it's tough when they want 13,000, or 1,000,
Another thought I just had while thinking about that is, do we have a way to track who we've given money to? Because maybe when they reapply, we don't give the same person money twice, or we look at other people that have applied a couple times but weren't awarded money, things like that to make it a little bit more, so we're knowledgeable about that.
That's a good suggestion.
Yeah, I do track it and all of these are all new,
Okay, they're all new,
Yeah.
okay.
but I do like the idea of the annual,
annual. Mhm.
Can you explain that?
just doing this once a year,
Okay, instead of breaking it up.
twice a year.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because you'll have a certain amount of money budgeted at the beginning of the fiscal
we're
year.
not scrambling.
We do it before, just before the budget.
So in budget season, we can put a little more in our council discretionary funds too.
That's gonna suggest that with the budget coming up.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit more just to make sure we have, yeah. Not a whole lot more because, we're all fighting over this tiny pile of money.
Yeah, that really dates back to the revenue sharing one time a year
Yeah.
program we used to have, and going through the recession,
It went away.
it had to go away because
Yeah,
we
we did.
needed to balance our own budget first and take care of our own organization. And bringing that back online has been, there's been slow bumps and one-offs, and normally been just one time a year.
It's a can of worms as well,
It's
the way
always a
it
can of
used to be done. We had a council member who would get up and go out and ask for money for his program. And we just go, we can't do that, and
Wow.
it was, and the room was full of requests. I mean, we had 20, 25, 30
You're
requests.
talking about Keith?
It was crazy.
The prevailing,
It was crazy.
the senior center was always
What you said.
always an award. The SNAP benefits related to the senior center was an award. Food bank,
Yeah.
community foundation for a while, there was a little bit, and then a whole bunch of others. And so it was like, in some ways, it's a lot simpler just to not go through that process. But there is community need and to the sense.
And maybe a letter to Tumbleweed Studios saying to reach out to Sean and Duggan if there's any way we can support, to find out there might be ways we could help support any of their program, okay? And Sean is very good with that type of stuff.
Yeah, and I would be on board with doing this annually to make it easier on, budgeting and trying to clean that up a little bit. But is there also any way, Kathy, that you could inform us when it comes up again, if people have reapplied and if they've been awarded, so that we can keep that into consideration when we are?
Yes. One of the things that we did with some state revenue sharing was anybody who reapplied, no matter when it was, whenever you reapplied, you had to give a report of what you, how your project went the time before.
Yeah, I like that, but I also like the idea of trying to spread the wealth a little bit and letting new people apply that, like, for instance, if Tumblewheel applies again, I would be more likely to advocate for them since they've applied and weren't awarded yet, you know, so. So, you know, just something like that.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Okay.
I just wanted to share an observation of the meeting that, you know, the kinds of support we're offering to the community through organizations like CSET and the small business are really wonderful investments. So we're investing in these businesses that are supporting those businesses.
Yeah, pretty
And-
impressive,
and
$115,000 to nonprofits.
Yeah.
And so they're finding resources, working with that. So, but we've invested pretty heavily in both of those organizations. So it's a little less direct, but it's a good outcome.
The one area I have a fear of is the funding the homeless. And part of it is what's under the name, the House of the Homeless. There are some things I would do for the homeless, like training programs to get them out of the homeless thing, as compared to just giving some guy who doesn't want to work. And then there's the mentally ill who you have to take care of. So that word encompasses so many facets, and some of those facets don't carry a really good image.
Get involved with that, try to get involved with that mental health program that deals just exactly with what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's where that money goes. And if you get involved in that and say your piece there, I'm sure they have open ears.
Yeah. That's, you know, the mental health, definitely. Some of the other homeless programs that come up just make the problem worse.
And just to be clear, it's not an endorsement of homelessness. This is a program that's already been working.
That's
They've
right.
already been doing this in the community. They've already partnered up with Community Action, even other places. So this is just something to help something that has already been working. It's not like we're funding
Pretty
it.
new.
Yeah.
It's the word homeless and the facets that come under that is the trouble. There's some things that absolutely need more than we can give.
Well, a lot of these things that they are doing are like just providing like toiletries for homeless people and things like that. It's not, you know, it's more basic needs.
Yeah, as I say, some of the places where we can take a look at Portland where it has overflowed into other things, which is causing, that's the scary part about using the name homeless for, that's.
Kathy has some clarification or a question.
For annual, if you want to do annual, when do you want that to be?
This time of year works perfect
Yeah,
prior to budget.
yeah.
So at the end of our budget.
Yeah, you want it at the end of?
About this time of year works well for us.
Isn't that kind of concerning, because won't we have spent like money, right? Shouldn't we do it in the beginning?
We know
maybe?
what our balances are. We know what we can use because of your report. It's very effective. So I think this time of year is. it
You know,
works
it's
very
not
well.
bad. January 1 would be the time to set for your application.
The only thing I was thinking on is that like, I think you make a good point. So that's why I say they're beginning or end, right? Like which one it makes more sense to make sure we stay within budget and.
More accountability in the end because we can balance things out and know what's left.
Yeah, but then if we're like, oh, we overspent and now we don't have quite as much to give away that we planned on giving away.
You know,
Well, that's
no,
tough.
You
I
could
mean, that's the way
say,
the world is.
you could just say that you're gonna, out of the $20,000 you have in that fund, that 10,000 is gonna be dedicated towards community grants.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, like if you do it now, then if you have money left over, then you could do a little bit more.
So then we're just really doing the choosing of how the money will be allocated, not necessarily how much money will be allocated. Okay.
Okay,
That would have
so
already been
I
determined.
think we should, with that fund, we should maintain as much flexibility throughout the whole year process as we possibly can. Instead of pigeonholing a certain amount here, a certain amount here. If something comes up, then we scratch it for funds. So
Yeah.
flexibility is a good thing.
yeah, and if we start going back to the league and stuff like that, all that, you know.
It comes out of those funds,
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
so. Okay, so we have direction of where we're going tonight. Okay. So our next item is potential right-of-way dedication off Mar Avenue. Jacob.
Thank you. So this is exactly how it's titled and its potential, depending on how the council wants to
I'm familiar with this.
see it. So Kathy, can you start with this?
That's my answer.
I did.
So this property should be, well, you'll be more familiar with it tonight because this is the annexation public hearing.
Yeah.
And this is the same property. And I wanted to show this first, just so you can see the surrounding street network. You have Pittsburgh Road to the north. You have a couple of streets on the east side, Willie Lane and the Bar, which are off of Bar. A little further south, you have Westboro Way. Can you? You have Westboro Way there, and then nothing on the south end. Now, if we look at the next attachment to the memo, and this shows some wetland stuff going on. So, and there's two layers of wetland, if you will. And what that's gonna do, based on those surrounding rights of way, you're gonna have 3 pockets of development. You're kind of making a layered cake. So development, wetlands, wetlands. And it's the southern portion, which is the subject of this discussion. So the southern portion does not quite abut right of way. And if we can see the very bottom end of that, if you look at the lower right-hand corner, you don't see Bar Avenue, you see a property in between. And that is the area that we're talking about for right-of-way dedication. So this is subject to annexation. We anticipate this is going to be a subdivision subsequent to the application. And this asking or considering this right-of-way dedication in advance is not an everyday thing. And so we wanted to make sure this went before our planning commission just to see how they felt about it. So that way we were armed with their recommendation before we came to the council. The planning commission considered this at their last meeting and they seemed in favor of it unanimously. So we have that. And what it is, the specific area, if we can go down a little bit more, Kathy. So on this plat, that on the lower left-hand corner of that image, that's the property in question. And if we look at the next 2 slides, this one here, so this is it more specifically. You can see what we're calling it's the Comstock property because that's the ownership there to the left of the hatched area. The yellow hatched area is an access easement for another property. And then the area with the yellow and turquoise hatching is the proposed generally area for right-of-way dedication. And note how the sanitary sewer manhole is noted on that map. If we look at the next slide, look at things more closely, this is generally the area that we're talking about, roughly 10 feet north of that manhole, and that would permit both a right-of-way for a street to connect to that portion. And then the significance of the manhole is you don't even punch sewer through there. That's already, we try to avoid excessive structures like a manhole, and the manhole is a structure that you would branch off of. So that would permit the road as well as utility extensions. It's only about 1,500 square feet. The placement of the road really is the sweet spot between Sykes to the south and then Ruby Court to the north. So street spacing is fine. It's really not developable because it's just driveway. Some of the photos on the memo itself, you'll see some mailboxes and a street light there that will have to be moved. And the Meadowbrook Homeowners Association, who owns that property, the president is aware and on board, and the potential developer has already started working on legal description. So things are moving. What we're asking for tonight is, as part of your regular session, is the council's green light. So you are okay with this concept, so we can come back at a later meeting with the appropriate documentation to vacate that right of way, or excuse me, dedicate that right of way.
Basically, you're making it so we can put a street in there.
Yes.
Yeah, an awful lot of words for that.
Well, there's always stuff, right?
Yeah, I know.
And I wanna make sure that
You got this
aware of
stuff.
the stuff.
I'll bring up some stuff probably. Was there any talk about delineation of the wetlands?
Yes, there was in fact, and the wetlands that you see there, they don't have consent from the state, but they are based on a wetland analysis by someone who's done a lot of work locally. We trust them, and so maybe those wetlands as shown on that one aren't 100% accurate, but they're not gonna be way off. So we do know that there's gonna be that developable portion, and we're sure that those wetlands cross the borders because of what we've seen on both sides. So we know the layers there, and we know it's an obstruction to access.
And are there wetland banks in the same drainage area? Do you know that?
Wetland, you mean mitigation banks?
Yes.
Mitigation is not eligible for significant wetlands to the city.
Say that again?
These wetlands are significant to the city of St. Helens per our comprehensive plan goal 5 process. And to eliminate a significant city wetland, it really isn't an option.
It's a wetland forever.
No,
That's,
I don't buy that.
and these are drainages, and so if you eliminated it, you would be capping off critical drainage. And so from a bureaucracy standpoint, it appears impractical based on our code. Also from a natural function standpoint.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah,
I understand all of that, but I was just curious if there was any banks, people who own wetlands who can take that property and actually sell their bank to the developer, and that developer can take 3 times as much land and get rid of it to the bank. And then that bank becomes a larger dedicated wetland.
Yeah, there's one, the apartment complex on Gable Road utilized a bank. I think it's outside of Scappoose.
Yes, right by the cemetery, I think.
And
Yeah.
that was a lot of mitigation for that one.
Yeah, and I was actively involved in that issue with the wetland off of Highway 30, next to where the Oregon State Extension, Lavachit Yobo.
Yeah, where the,
There was a big lake in there, and that was the wetland, and it got covered up. And the bank was in my family's property, and it worked out very, very effectively for both parties. So I just thought, that's why I'm so adamant about, that there are ways.
That was not a significant wetland.
ESL will say, yeah, that's a good fit.
And
that
that's-
makes it work.
and that's the key term, DSL. It's an agency wetland, not a city significant wetland.
I see, okay.
So that's, because you have, does the state care, does the feds care via the Army Corps of Engineers, and then does the city care? And you have those 3 layers.
I get it.
There are already culvert niches here because I know that property. Yes, I mowed that property and I actually should have came in right there and I didn't. But it has actual catch basins and the first part of where water comes across that whole property there, a narrow ditch, EAD, you can't go around and, so yeah. I actually heard that for the wetlands people to come in, was hired by Ian Moraine.
Yeah, so she is the daughter-in-law who is the relative of Comstock, who's kind of making sure things happen.
I didn't mean to muddy the waters, which wetlands usually clear up.
Yeah, the problem is, it's not simple, there's all these laws and it's inherently muddy.
Okay. I have a question. So how many houses are projected to go back in there?
Well, that's,
A few parcels, right? So.
it's probably gonna be less than 10.
Okay.
Based on some of the things we've seen. I did mention the approximate square footage outside of any wetland or protection zones around 78,000.
So somewhere under 10, so.
Yeah,
The road will be big enough and there will be, access. That's gonna be the biggest thing that people are concerned about in the neighborhoods is the road big enough and, will there be parking in the neighborhood for everybody and will there be parking on this road? So those are things I'm sure you guys have considered
yes, yeah,
or
so,
will consider.
and so this dimension will accommodate any right-of-way standard that we have, from the skinny 40-foot one to a wider one, as well as the extension of that sewer line. So, yeah, we did.
So we won't know if it's gonna be a skinny one yet until, how will you know?
That's later. That will be when they submit the actual subdivision.
Right,
Right now, we're going through the annexation, and that stuff is happening behind the scenes.
right, okay. That's my question, but. And I read the notes about like some of the public comments that were made, so I read that, there was a few people in favor, there was a few people that were really concerned about the wetland and the natural habitat in the area, and then there was a few neighbors that were just unbiased, but they were like, we don't want this to turn into Portland, so. Yeah. So I did read.
So
I
when
read
you
the
sit up
notes.
here, so when you sit up here long enough, you hear about all the pheasant, you hear everything that's
Yeah.
played in that field.
Uh-huh.
And actually, the people that are giving the testimony, if you sat up here long enough, you'd heard the same thing about where they're living in that field as well.
Yeah, I'm starting to get the gist of that, yeah, I'm starting to get the gist of that, but the roads are concerns because the roads are, there for a long time. Those are the roads we're gonna drive down and people live in the neighborhood will, so
I think,
it's important that they're appropriate for the neighborhood.
I think a lot of what was good about the process was the process enables people to express their values and their concerns. I did think though that a lot of that testimony wasn't necessarily pertinent to the specific issue
Yeah.
that the planning commission was trying to determine, the basis which they determine it. But yeah, I think when you hear that, you hear values that people have and what they want, and I think that's an important part of the process, even though the specific comments may not pertain specifically to the issue at hand. And I think that the planning commission heard it all well, they did good deliberations, I think.
So
Made a solid recommendation.
if you want to know history on that too, it was three that inherited the property. Bar Avenue and Westboro were actually two, and the center was the brother that held out and didn't want to develop. So realistically, the whole property as a whole, they're just the centerpiece.
Hmm.
That's fact.
Family. So, yeah, good.
And do you project any issues with the moving of the light pole and the mailboxes, or is that really on the developer?
It would be on them because they're putting the street through,
Right.
and it's something that has to be done.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be more drama than we think? Sometimes you just don't know until it happens.
Continue.
But it seems like the low hanging fruit as an access point for that property, so.
That's all I got.
Well, Jacob, like you said, there's a bunch of other utilities too that are to the south of that, that are to the north of it, that are. Has to be right there. I mean, that makes most sense.
Yeah, for it to be right of way because of those utilities and things, yeah. There's a lot of argument that right of way is not such a big deal there.
And this gal's been working methodically, trying to do things right, with you and Jenny as well, so that's good.
Jacob, in the city's wonder of wonders, is there any, we say, preferred placement of streets according to the city, or is it up to the developer only?
It's a little bit of both. We do have considerations, especially depending on what kind of street you're on, like Pittsburgh. You know, we only want a street every so often and certain spacing. And when we're looking at infill development, and a lot of the sites that we have now are infill. And so, okay, well, here are the street stubs, that's a logical place to extend the street. So we're kind of advancing a lot of past decisions.
Because when I take a look at the map of original St. Helens, we had a rigid system of squares and parallels, which don't fit worth doodly.
Yeah, we don't do it like that.
And I just wondered if that type of system had been overlaid in this area.
Yeah, we do not blindly apply grids to areas where topography and other obstructions make.
So we've
it
changed
relevant.
from when we got started.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we don't like neighborhoods like 21st Street. I lived on 21st and,
Well, that's nice street, that's what, 20 foot.
oh
20
my
foot.
gosh, that neighborhood is just a mess with the way the roads work in there and, yeah. Old school St. Helens.
It's character.
Yeah, it is definitely. Get lost, you need to like visualize where
Oh,
to
nice
go.
to see
and
the
that.
street.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, exactly, yeah.
That's gonna be a national monument in a few years.
That whole neighborhood is a fun one to know.
Okay, any other questions for Jacob on this one? Because we're gonna go on to the alterations to the Courthouse Plaza designated landmark.
Okay, so you all know what the plaza is. It's right there, familiar to everybody. And it's a very unique feature for St. Helens, and it gets a lot of attention. There's no doubt about Halloween Town. It was filmed there. It's become a tourism and event draw and the envy of many cities and main streets. To have that kind of a draw in the downtown is huge. And so that's a great asset for the city. But the plaza is also an historical asset. And it's what our codes call a designated landmark. And this piece of property right in front of us, it's different, and we have to think about it a little differently from any other property really within city limits. So let's talk about historic resources briefly. Now, historic landmarks, those are the formal historic resources for St. Helens. And we have 24 total, 22 of those are buildings. And so we're used to dealing with buildings. You change a window, that can be a big deal to historic people. We have one site, and that's the plaza. And because it's our one and only site, it's treated differently, and it's that historical sensitivity that we're just hoping that everybody is aware of. And really the principal reason for this brief presentation is just so you are aware of this issue, because we know the plaza gets a lot of attention. People probably brainstorm with you. And so if you're aware of the historical sensitivity, we can make sure we're all moving in the right direction. So a historical landmark, if it is altered, that's a formal term in our code, then it requires review by our Historic Landmarks Commission. An alteration just means you're significantly affecting it. And so the courthouse, if you alter the courthouse, okay, we're supposed to review that. Now the courthouse grounds immediately surrounding that, no big deal. But the plaza being a historic site, that those grounds then are sacred from an historic preservation standpoint. And it was tested a little bit with some vertical advertising signage, and seeing that sitting there for a while was a question, well, is this an alteration for a site? Because we only have one site, it's not the everyday question. And so staff's intuition was, well, it probably is, but we wanted to double check our intuition with the planning commission, who is our acting historic landmarks commission, just to make sure, well, you know, maybe because the footprint is small, they wouldn't see it as an alteration. But the visual impact, especially standing from
Your office.
first looking, well,
Your
standing
office.
from
That's
first, that's actually from the roof.
Is it?
Yeah, but from first looking at the courthouse, and that's really that iconic view, because the plaza was designed by the same architect and installed the year after the courthouse, and so they're kind of a pair. That's the front lawn, and having those advertisements up year round was like, well, this may be considered a permanent alteration. So anyways, we checked with the commission. They felt like it was unanimously with all 7 members present. And you know, that issue's been resolved, and so it's not something that
Say that again. Say just what you said, the last sentence.
the commission agreed that it was an alteration unanimously
Thank
with
you.
all 7 members present. Yeah, so basically everybody in the group was like, yeah, we
So-
did that.
So old school though is yew trees, about 8 on each side, yew bushes, with a very clean looking plaza, if you wanna go historically.
Yeah, and there's some,
If you look at the originals, you're like, wow.
yeah, there's some photos in here. So if we scroll down a little bit,
I got something to add to the mayor. In 1999 or 98 or 99, the plaza was redesigned. And it was stopped in its tracks by, from what I understand, by one person who's was and is a business owner on First Street, and stopped the whole thing in its tracks. And that person had so much clout in the community at that time that it stopped it dead. The design I briefly saw at one time. And did the planning commission at all, do they have reference to that design to bring back up and look at it? Because it included new trees, it included a lot of things, more pedestrian, kind of user-friendly goal. And so and when the mayor alluded to traditionally what was going on, I thought I'd bring that up as well, because when I read through this, I go, whoa, there was a design, and the city council paid a tremendous amount of money and a lot of research into that design. So just thought I'd bring that up to muddy the waters again.
yeah, what makes that a little bit muddier is there was a significant change of law in 2008. And that's when we became a certified local government. And we became a certified local government largely based on your recommendation.
I did the research on it.
Yeah, and that's been a really valuable thing for us. We've had our historic grant that we've done many cycles since then, and it's been great. But the laws did change a little bit. Before that, the entity that reviewed these kind of things was a counselor, a commissioner, and a staff member, which was kind of interesting. But when we became a certified local government, one of the things we had to do was modernize our code essentially. So now we have the Historic Landmarks Commission. Alteration probably has a little bit of a better definition. So in relation to that late 90s proposal, I'm not that aware of it, and I don't know where the historic record is of it. We don't have any file, so I don't know if it went through the formal historic review component of it. But in any case, going forward at this point, and there could be things you could do pathway wise. The crucifix pattern, which was there, was there up to the 60s. When we put these photos together, I don't know if we had many photos after 63, but you can see that cross pattern was there at the time, but in 83 it left. Restoring that, it makes you wonder, well, would that help facilitate Halloween Town activities with more pathways, less mud. So there's potential restoration that could work with our tourism activities, but the key
But you
thing.
see the element of that is big trees are not in those pictures.
Exactly. They haven't had time to
Yeah,
grow.
that's correct.
Yeah.
They haven't had time to grow.
They're gonna continue to push curbs up and asphalt up and everything else, and it's something that, it's not gonna be popular, but something that needs to be addressed, and I would be all for the recommendation of trying to get back to that right there.
Cutting down the trees, is that what you just said, Mayor?
Well, they have shelf lives, they have shelf lives.
I know.
and they just, you know, yeah.
How many have we cut down out there in recent decade? Quite a two or three,
Two or
three, I think. They're Dutch elm, and their life is like marginally impaired, so they can go away at any time.
In
A
the
virus comes along.
I was gonna say, the Midwest, the virus gets away. The question I also have, we have a bunch of signs, did people have to pay to have a sign put up? Are these commercial fixtures that got put in?
I'm not aware, I mean, I'm sure Tina knows that.
When I look at that, I can see that we have, whether they're paid for or not, we have preferred people that are part of the historic.
No, that wasn't historical.
That's
That's our
different.
lease agreement with the county. Actually, county owns that, and we have a IGA with county to utilize that for Halloween Town and the.
I know that, but I'm saying, here's a piece of ground that I've got advertising on.
You're just trying to muddy the waters. I see the whole email. back and forth.
Great.
City doesn't follow its own rules, this whole thing.
I didn't write that yet, but I agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm like, we all have ideas right now and thoughts. Well, I'd like to just jump in real quick and just get my thoughts out there, which is one, I in particular put note about the restoring of the circular or the crucifix feature. One, I think that's gonna really help with, I mean, the way that the square looks. I mean, we all see it. It's muddy. It's a problem. And I think being able to bring it back to a historic look, great, I'm all on board. I think that looks great. I think that would also possibly help with the problem that we're incurring here, right? Which is one of the issues that I read was that the signs are put on a cement platform, and that is where the problem is, right? That's with outside of the rules to do that.
Yeah, because that suggests permanency.
Yes.
And that's where, okay, well, this is delving into the alteration category.
So if we put the cement crucifix, then the signs could be placed on the cement pathways that would be there. That's my thought.
Good, yeah,
So
could be temporary
So
too.
that could fix a lot of our problems and just be aesthetically, pleasing to the square. That's my 2 cents about it.
And anything would need to go before the Historic Landmarks Commission, so that's always an important.
There's a process.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Sure, I think we're getting way beyond though what I understand the main point was.
The main point is just awareness.
Yeah.
To make sure that.
But with these particular, one of the reasons these were looked at, these particular things, it seems that they were put in with a permanent sort of way, but without, as I understand, not this, so when the information kiosk had to be put up, branding of the wayfinding and branding,
Yeah.
city had to go through a particular process for permitting, et cetera. Okay, and with, my understanding is like with the putting in of the cement pads here, the same kind of process was not followed to ensure that we followed the rules. And so in that sense, it's not the issue whether or not we have that this seems to be a permanent structure rather than a temporary one. And do we need to follow the same rules that were the rules followed? And should we follow the rules for any of this type of thing?
Yeah.
And so-
The question about following rules, that should be cast in concrete. But when I look at it visually, I see advertising on a historic site, and you wouldn't want to put by Sam's on the Mount Rushmore.
So, well, and I think too, you find it was unanimous by the planning commission, including one of the sponsors, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah, good point, yeah.
Who's on there, who voted, voted in saying that they thought that this was an alteration.
Yeah.
And again, it's not so much the issue of whether or not there would be some advertising there at some time, but the permanent nature of that. And so that was the main concern. Was something put in permanently, but without with a sense of permanence, but without going through the proper process to do that.
It was, I think there's a lot going on, it's just a communication thing, and that's why, an ounce of prevention is worth, 12 to 16 ounces of cure.
Jacob, could you write this down just to see if there is any historical reference of any type of sidewalk around the perimeter of it?
That was in that plan.
Because also for flags too, I could see like a lot of flags being planted here. For 4th of July, it would look very awesome to have 5 more and 10 more, so 25 total flagpoles.
That plan.
Yeah. I don't recall.
A little hole is not gonna be significant in a curb. Is it?
No.
And I'll just say this, really a concrete where you can bolt something in, that's about like that makes sure the sign doesn't get tipped over and pushed over by anybody because of so many people, and that would be the reason for it. I don't know how significant it
The
is. but
small
I hear it, I
concrete
hear it.
slab is, it's so small.
Yeah.
And I don't, the commission didn't focus on that as much as the long-term placement of the vertical.
Sure, I agree that they should be up.
All year.
Once it's over, it should be down. I agree.
That plan I was given reference to eliminated the interior parking and made a sidewalk of it.
Yeah.
Because they thought that the plaza was so important that it shouldn't be muddled up with cars. But cars should be able to park for the businesses on the exterior.
That's actually not a bad.
So that have to do with the redesign of the streets and everything.
Yeah, the interior parking, yes.
Okay.
Just
We have
be
a lot of
prepared-
ideas
Be
for the
prepared
Plaza,
for,
don't we?
I remember, Councilwoman, I remember when that proposal came down, I as a citizen thought, oh, this is gonna be a nice improvement, but then, yeah, there was pushback, so I mean, we would need to proceed very carefully and thoughtfully to
Exactly.
enlist.
If we can find some things in here that, those were wagon days. It was wider. If you can get dimensions, if you can figure out a way to get that dimension right there, in wagon days, there probably wasn't parking on the inside here. And I'm sure that curb wasn't there. I'm sure that curb was not there in 1908. I'm gonna put money on
That
it.
one is 1910.
Yeah.
It's-
So anything you can do to try to help realize that vision of making that a little bit bigger out there, maybe get rid of the interior parking?
Well, and I would,
Parking.
I'd like to see the pathways up there too, because it's not even just about Halloween Town. I know that's a big one,
Right.
but like bringing your kid out there, walking through the mud, it is just a muddy plaza. And I think that was the purpose even back then, it was to have a walkway so you can come to the center of the plaza for, whatever.
I'd also like to argue the success of the Veterans Plaza with that.
Yeah.
With that basically, not that needs to be 100% brick or concrete or whatever. But I could see breaking it up a little more for pedestrians to get around in wet weather, which is predominant in our part neck of the woods for 8 months out of the year.
We know you guys are slammed and have a lot on your plate too. Steve, do testimony for you guys or?
Jacob.
Do you think you can find out on it? Let us know.
Have you been over to the museum to see what kind of collections they have over the years?
We have a lot of photos on this.
Yeah.
Cause I know they've got all kinds of, even great pictures of when you put a gallows up there for getting rid of people.
Yeah, I don't have the gallows
Only
picture.
one,
It's happened.
only one.
It's happened.
Only one.
God.
The last public one in the state of Oregon. But as I say, there's a huge amount, as I remember, of pictures and buildings that have come and gone in the area.
So my final question is, are you looking for any follow-up for this situation?
This is,
Just
well,
awareness?
the issue's been resolved,
Okay.
so there's no point in crying over spilled milk.
Okay.
This is, but the intent is this little piece of land gets a lot of attention.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people that have ideas. And it's probably gonna get more attention as Halloween Town grows. And so this is just being proactive. Just, okay, let's remember the historic resources component. And so when you're thinking of things, or thinking, well, we'll leave it alone and have the event and make no permanent improvements. It's educational.
Now, I'm gonna ask you another thing about improvement. There's what they call a vacuum irrigation system, where you wanna have heavy use of grass, which could get money, but you have a vacuum pad basically under the area of grass, like a whole football field, and you suck the water out of it so it never gets muddy, but you can irrigate it.
Augusta National.
Yeah, it's something like, I mean, it's a major redo of the ground out there. It looks green when you get done, but it's definitely a huge change of what's presently out there. So we, historic from top to bottom, or just how it looks.
I'm sure they had water sucking filtration systems back in 1910, so.
You ought to see what these things
Well,
are.
that would be significant historical change,
Oh,
Councilor.
yeah, it would be a big change. The look would still look like good grass,
Exactly.
but it's,
So.
I have a pump house over here in John's office.
In the, any other burning desires for Jacob on the plaza?
No.
Thank you.
I would just make a note that the upgrades to the plaza is a project in urban renewal, that there's funds designated towards contributing towards
Perfect.
improvements there, so whatever that looks like.
And you're talking about the streets surrounding the plaza,
No, the actual,
the
the
plaza itself.
plaza itself has
Oh, okay.
funding.
I didn't know that.
So could you let, also the historical society know that that we are interested in trying to further discussion towards bringing that plaza back to what it used to be?
Those signs aren't the only structures either.
As-
They could come up and down with the events. You've got the archway, you got the Christmas tree slot that gets
Seasonal.
taken out.
Yeah.
There's other benches that come and go,
But
but it's event related.
I have one last comment as well. And if trees become an issue, trees have been a big issue in our street trees. And some of that was resolved with container trees. So they're still trees, but they're in a container and they aren't so messy. They don't tear up what you have. That's all.
I would just to say that anything that we could do to bring it back close to that with a little bit of a modern twist, because it has been altered a number of times from 1907 to
Right.
2022.
There's probably middle ground for
Yes.
going back and then functional based on what's happening today. I think there's middle ground there for sure.
Yeah, well, any help we can get along with that, knowing that there's funding also within our urban renewal, great. So, the historical society would like to help out with that. I think we as a council would be grateful for any help we could get.
Yeah, it'd be a good proactive project for them when the time is right.
Okay, thank you, Jacob.
Is there members at large on the historical committee other than the planning commission?
Okay, so let's go, we're going to our next item, which is review the RFQ.
So this is something that I've been talking about for quite a long time, roughly 6 months at least, and updates. And I'm really glad to have it here. This is the date we were targeting this time of year. Getting out early in the year, timing it with coordination of the Riverwalk plans, the street and utilities plans, and getting these those plans kind of coming together about the same and ready to go out to bid about the same time as we engage with the development community. So there's an opportunity for real meaningful conversation, and we don't miss opportunities. If we get somebody that has a vision that still works with the city's vision, they're developers doing some things and trading around the variables there. This is the perfect time to have that. We're excited about that, and this is a revised RFQ to attract and retain a developer to work with. And if you recall, last time we did this was 2017. 2017, and we went out to bid, and we're all excited, had big aspirations, that we're gonna get on a big, long list of developers. Went through an exercise, extended it a few more months, and we got none actually, until actually even that was closed, and then we were approached, through the support with Eco Northwest consultants actually marketing on our behalf to really get the word out. It's a different, we're in a completely different place now. We're much more refined in our plans. We're along, the economy is completely different. So we feel like this is really good time. So I guess my point with that is that.
The next video to go with it.
Well, we do kick it off with the video that we shared.
Yeah.
It tells the city story, right?
Yeah.
The vision, what's important to the city. The RFQ is really putting that into words and slightly twist on the lens of what they might be interested in as well. And so we've set this up, and I can go kind of through the high level bits of this, and thank you, Jenny and others that have contributed to this document, because it really does tell the story of what we're doing here, and it's exciting for me to read through this, talk about how it came to be to this point we are now.
Before you go too far, when this property was bought, there was a code put down for how the waterfront was zoned. And there's a 50-foot wide zone down the front end. And the pictures here, those things don't match that 50-foot zone business. What's
Jacob can do that better, but I think he's going to tell you that that's an average. 50 foot is an average. It can flex in and out.
Well, I know you don't like this. I had a conversation with one of the developers that is, in fact, he was here this week looking at the property. And he's talked to the other developers, and they've got some problems with some of the things that haven't been told. That's where I'll leave it.
That haven't been what?
Haven't been told to them when they look at the property.
And you're making them aware of that?
I'm just telling you, I'm not telling you, because the way I've been treated and the fact that you call me a liar, I do not say anything that to them that I tell you. Or versus what.
But what you're telling us is that you're meeting with developers and
No, they're meeting with me.
highlighting problems that you believe.
No, not at all.
Thank you for identifying that.
And in fact, I'll tell you one of the things, one of the developers I've known for longer than I've lived here, and their jokes about what's between 3rd and 4th Street, they understand some of the things the city has done, and that's why they have problems with this.
Okay, so I don't
Because
want
they have seen you in action
I
before.
really don't want to bring your project, your stormwater project, which is your houses are between 3rd and 4th Street, and we're all aware of your history. And everybody up here has been nothing but very patient with you and always considerate. It's always you that likes to fire off, and you can go back and watch videos. I'm sorry that you feel as though that everybody's against you, because we're not. If you were aware of your own behaviors and your own actions, and you took some accountability for those, you might, and we're humble enough to understand that we're not up here trying to hurt you, we're up here trying to better each other.
Okay, may I finish? May I give you
that being
the
said,
conversation? They,
Your comment about us coming after you is
okay,
not true.
let's hold it. They
Not-
told
not
me
in this-
back in '09 that there was a problem with that property. These people understand the water runs downhill. These are contractors who have big projects. This is not a big project.
So
And when they see a problem, and I will tell you that they see a problem, you call me a liar. That I find great. They understand that I'm not.
Nobody called you a liar.
You have.
Okay.
So.
But you're kind of out of order right now, and I'd like to let John do his presentation because it's real relevant to what you are holding secret to you and your contractor buddies. If you're not willing to divulge it, I want to move on with our city business.
go
and you
ahead.
can deal with
But
the
I'm
other
trying to
business that
tell
you
you-
have going on the side. Because you have some business going on the
No,
side.
I have no business
Yes,
doing
you
that.
do. That's exactly what you stated.
That's, see, now you're calling me a liar. I love it.
Well, you said it.
No, when I told you,
Council, did you hear the same thing?
what I told you was
My statement.
what I told you is they said you had a problem and you're not listening.
You said you didn't, I listened 100%. I heard you.
No, you
said
didn't
what
listen.
You said.
No,
Go back and rewatch this meeting, Counselor Topaz,
said-
when you get home.
if I told
See if
you,
I'm wrong.
I told you that they see a problem here.
Now,
They being, because a couple of the
now
comments.
you're holding everybody hostage. We were wanting to get a report from
Okay, so,
John
but you-
on our RFQ.
I'm trying to
right
get
now.
you out of a problem and you won't even listen.
No,
That's what I'm telling you.
Counselor Topaz, if you won't reveal to us the specific information that are the supposed undisclosed information, then we are unable to deal with that. So I think it does not help to say something like that of knowledge that you have that is pertinent to decisions that we.
I just
make.
told you
So-
knowledge.
So
And then
here,
if you don't let us know, then we cannot respond.
here is my opinion. Here is my opinion. And I feel as though it's true because anytime we have some good momentum going, anytime there's a good presentation or something good like this, Counselor Topaz likes to destroy things that the city has going. He has filed a lawsuit against the city back in like 08, 07, 08, lost the lawsuit, appealed the lawsuit, lost the appeal over a stormwater system on 3rd and 4th Street that floods his basement, Beely Amusement, which used to always flood when Rick or Cheney owned it. And Hickey was involved in that too. It's always flooded. But you wanted to pin that on the city and try to make them accountable and you lost. And now you're upset because there's a historical creek that comes down through that the city's never addressed. And we've heard it all. We've heard it all. It always comes back to that. And anytime we're moving forward with something positive, you have to try to destroy it. Every time. With your comments and then trying to deflate this beautiful presentation with a beautiful video. Staff, you are rocking it. John, you're rocking it. Citizens, we're moving forward. Despite what this guy is trying to allege the city by putting deception in your mind, I would absolutely, where's the camera? I'd absolutely encourage you to not, or do a little due diligence, research what he's trying to say. If there's any validity to it, come present it to us in council. If not, take it as a grain of salt from what he says from here on out.
Can I say something now? John Walsh just said that they put out an RFP and a number of people did not answer.
Any validity to your.
Is that correct, John?
Show us proof.
Years back, we opened this property up and you got no answers from developers, correct?
No, that is not correct. Not with the amount.
Let John answer.
Counselor Topaz, do you wanna be removed from this meeting?
I've been trying to get what he said. He told us that they put out, the city put out, and you cut that off. And I just told you I
Hey,
found other people who are developers said the same
why do
thing.
I feel like I'm talking to an abusive father right now?
Go for it.
Huh?
Go for it. John's
Like
got to
you're gonna
answer.
School me.
John's got to answer.
I am the mayor of this city, Counselor Topaz. I run this meeting. You're
Go
not
ahead.
respecting
Good.
me.
I think you've
And
done
our
exactly
time.
what I need to have
You're not
done.
respecting this whole entire council
That is correct.
with our time.
That is correct.
Yes,
That is correct.
so.
And you don't know why
You
either,
do not
do you?
wanna be. I know why, because the lawsuit that you lost, I watched you give testimony when Peterson was sitting up here about it. You've been going on for this for years,
And water still runs downhill.
so,
Go, John.
Let's try to pull
I'm
ourselves
trying
back
to,
together.
I'm really trying to.
Yeah, that's my hope for this, that it would be something positive and celebrated as.
Yes,
Well, it is by the majority of us.
yes.
So,
I've read through it, it tells the exact good story, I'm just gonna give a highlight of what, before you. I know you're gonna start going into it, but, it does tell the exact story of what we got, the visioning is perfect, 100%. The timeline that, Toshki spoke about, I also had a little concern with, maybe a 45-day instead of a 30-day out there to the public, which would push us back, one council meeting, and look, if you look at the timeline. I would like to see a 45-day advertisement deadline instead of a 30-day.
And what's the reasoning for that?
just to give people time to allow to respond.
So you think we need a little bit more time?
Yeah, for master developers to be able to absolutely come to a site visit, to be able to talk to Jenny or John and maybe do a little more, because it also asks for not just our vision, but if you can bring vision to this too.
I agree, because we've been at this for over 10 years, more like 12 or 13 years, and a lot of study going on. And to cut it short in any way at this point, so I agree with the mayor. I think 15 more days is really no big deal in terms of this project.
I had an assignment by a builder, not someone who is going to, I don't think he had the capacity or interest to bid, but did have that same concern, wondering why 30 days, and thought that a extension would be better for those reasons. And also part of my assignment too, and I'm sorry I wasn't here to hear Mr. Toski's testimony, so I'm glad he addressed the length of time. The question that this builder also had was how is this RFQ put out? So what means of
Marketing. yeah.
marketing?
Yeah, well, it's slated to go into the Daily Journal of Commerce on Friday. It'll be fairly quick. With regards to the dates, I was gonna address this in my run through with this.
Sure.
Anyway, maybe I'll move it to the front.
Yeah, that's very good.
Top of mind here is that, one thing we've learned through almost every RFQ, every public bid, is that nobody does anything to the last possible minute. And it just, this was an attempt to get people on board, show some interest. That, we're retaining the right to extend, and if they know that they're going to have 6 weeks, it's going to be 6. They're going to use every drop of it, right? They're going to put it off until then. And so we could change it slightly to show an intent to bid or to submit a proposal by a certain date. That might be a good milestone to throw in there, so we don't just keep that sense of urgency and alignment for all the other things that are coming together here.
Don, do you have an idea of if they were to do their homework, how long would their homework take? I mean, obviously you got to collect a bunch of documents. Can they do everything needs to be done in a week if they did everything, or is it going to take them a number of months to do it? I know we'd like them to do it, but going to a developer, what would he have to spend in time?
That's also something I was going to talk about, that the missing part, so it's scrambling around here. So what we're going to ask from the developers is in to mission and evaluation process, and we're asking them to just share their vision for the site, and then we're going to ask them, what's your process and approach? How would you go about it? How is this good for St. Helens? What do you see as challenges? And which you just brought up earlier. Is there something we're not seeing here that you think is going to be unachievable to meet the city's, align with their goals? And then how we engage with the public, this public-private, somebody that's worked with public-private partnerships. This isn't a public entity. The expectation is that this is a community project and having some engagement around that. What's your experience with that? Is one of the things we're asking them to deliver on. Then how are you going to fund it? What's your expectations for funding and financing of the project? And then also a timeline, if they're looking at a quick build or they're looking at years out, that might be important to city developer and their expectations. And then just real high level, that was kind of the vision piece of that submittal. Then experience with public-private partnerships is something that we felt that was important to somebody who's done that kind of thing. For the most part, you're looking at what they're looking forward, but we also are looking backwards at what they've already done. Are they respected in their community? Do they have a good reputation? Have they have delivered great projects and not caused started projects and stopped and got through after a project and bankrupt and failed? Those kinds of red flags. And now that it's the development team, it's the reference to other projects, and it's really, we're just shopping for their vision Who's done what and what they can do for us.
So they'll have the ability though to call up OTAC, call up Mary also, right? I mean, they'll know that we have actually worked diligently to try to keep cost to what is right for our area, but trying to keep nice stuff, but also cost, knowing that we have a budget to follow through too.
And as this goes live, we're also going to upload the plans we have to date as far as road alignment and things to have those developers be directed to those sites to have access to that information.
So you're not asking them to design a development to go on this site, basically you're gonna put something that you've got a fitting for.
I think they could, like laterals and stuff, placement, if they had.
That's too small a detail.
Yeah, the city has developed a framework plan. We've defined the roadway right-of-way alignment for the Main Street, Strand coming back. We're doing all the water, sewer, storm, pump station, all those are all on a path towards.
So it'd be pretty much shovel ready, other than sidewalks and a few other things.
It's looking at those development blocks. What should we do with those development blocks? How you might go about it, what patterning would you go commercial first or residential first, or would you have all of those
Mixed use,
or mixed use throughout, or
Yeah.
all of one or none of the other, or maybe it's a completely different kind of use. Maybe it's a.
And then just to be clear, that will come back to the council for us to review these ideas that these people are proposing. It doesn't mean that we're just gonna say, here you go, you do with it what you want, Councilor Topaz. I think this is just
Well, and
it.
Can I answer that, please?
It wasn't a question, but go ahead.
If you're a major developer, you would like to handle that whole area where he puts the roads and stuff, he knows that you've got to put in certain amount of water and sewer and stuff like that. That's part of the specs. But if you put the water and the sewer in where you want it, and it interferes with his overall larger picture, then he isn't gonna touch it. Now, he's gonna come with a larger picture and he's gonna have you look at it and see if you can come to an agreement. But if you put a whole bunch of stuff in and he has blocks to fill in, he loses most of the control. And that's what I'm trying to point out. If you have a developer, he wants to take care of that whole area. That means he's gonna have to put the sewer in that you need, plus the sewer he needs.
I think I see where this is going. I think that because the roads aren't by the waterfront, as Councilor Topaz has proposed, and we've had a number of different people on that committee, and we all agree that the road should not be up against the river. That's where our problem is.
I wanna thank you, Rick, for that, because you actually just said what I said. You were telling the developer how he's gotta do it. And I'm saying we need the developer to do that. And thank you for pointing out one of the bad spots that I want to.
I kind of think it's a collaboration of the two.
That's correct.
You've just been very
That's
adamant.
correct.
Yes.
Yes, you've just been very adamant though in a public meeting that we've had a number of times about your vision and not everybody else's vision.
Only worry about the
The argument really stemmed from that. If you really want to know what is going on, is somebody not getting their way?
The
And it's your vision, not ours.
purposeful, the reason we're doing this now, I'll rewind, is to have that conversation. It's the plans are just plans and they're not built, right? You're not moving, you're redesigning a plan is a pretty minimal cost. If somebody comes up with a vision for the site that works and achieves the city goals that everybody likes, they can do that before we make this big investment in infrastructure. They still have to connect sewer from one end to the other and water from one end to the other. Storm all has to work. Protect all the view corridors, all of the things that we've addressed as our must-haves for the city, and that's the real reason to have this.
Yeah, if they could do something like against the cliff, who knows?
Now, John, if the developer was to come in with his own money, what kind of consideration would you have for the ground? Cities put in no money.
So Councilor Topaz, when I just want to clarify what you mean by the ground. what I understand, the non-negotiables, we have the Riverwalk, that's going in. And we have the street extension. So when you talk about, and so what we're talking about is what's going in between.
That kills the project,
So,
if you want to develop, a total developer, that's what I'm
so,
saying.
Counselor Tobin, I would totally disagree with you, but I think we are beyond the point of any further discussion about whether or not the Riverwalk is going to go in or whether we extend the street. That the only conversation we can have at this
I think
point
6 years of
is-
conversation
is
around.
what is going in between the Riverwalk that we have promised to the public, which the public has overwhelmingly told us in every forum, they want access, public access to the river. That is just an absolute non-negotiable.
Okay. Go back to the words. Access to the river, that is part of what the developer will agree with you. Having it with just the Riverwalk as it is now is non-negotiable, and that kills the project.
For that particular developer perhaps, but I do believe that they're developing.
Okay.
Have you been?
Okay, but that's what I'm saying.
I imagine he's still wanting to do marine boat construction down here. He's still wanting to zone it commercial, is what I'm guessing. I'm not trying to be inside Councilor Culpepper's head, but I'm guessing that's where we're going with all this. Okay.
It isn't, but keep saying that, Rick, keep saying
Well,
that.
because you've mentioned it a number of
I
times.
have, yes.
And you get stuck on an idea, I've known you long enough now, that we have been unfortunately working together long enough and had plenty enough arguments that when you're stuck on an idea, you will go to the ends of the earth and sometimes.
Beyond.
I have a question that's back on topic if we may.
Yes.
Driving us back, I'm gonna turn the steering
Go ahead.
wheel. So one of the things that you brought up was that the last time we did this, we weren't really prepared. You did talk about some of the changes, but could you speak on the changes a little bit more? What's different from 2017's RFQ to this? What have we added?
Well, for one thing, we've done a whole lot more. And we have, the infrastructure's pretty well designed. Riverwalk is a long process and it would be universally liked. It's really just a different economy. And then Portland was red hot and nobody's leaving Portland. Now to St. Helens, St. Helens wasn't quite there yet.
Yeah.
I think it is now. It's just about economic conditions.
Vogel pointed out how valuable the riverfront of Columbia County is. And is our Riverwalk that much of an add to it, or is it an average? Could it be better? Could it be worse?
It's what's gonna bring people to our community. It's what's going to be a inspiration for development of our industrial park and what we might be going on at the Central Waterfront development. So, I mean, frankly, you know what, St. Helens, when it had all the business down there on the river, it wasn't that attractive. The riverfront was attractive. Yes, people were working, people were getting jobs, but you look at the pictures, it wasn't attractive. We can make this a beautiful city on the waterfront and also accommodate appropriate growth, light industrial growth in other properties that we have, and we still have other access to the river and others one. I think what's going to bring people to this community is absolutely what we're doing on the Riverwalk, and to beautify this city, to make it a pleasant place to live, a beautiful place for our residents. It's what our residents want.
I agree.
It's what our residents want.
Well, and Councilor Berkeley, you just hit on one of the best, most effective comments that you possibly could, because our mission is to develop and preserve the highest possible quality of life for our residents, businesses, and visitors. We're on that track. Provide a safe and healthy environment within a sound economic framework. We have tourism on the upswing. and provide leadership that is open and responsive to the needs of the community and works for the benefit of all. And I think through this entire process in the last 12, 13 years, it's been that all the way through. And we're at the point where you have just, expressed your concerns with what's now. And it follows our mission totally. Thank you.
So John, your kind of your RFQ got hijacked a little bit.
This is all healthy enough. Pieces of it just float around there. All gotta come back together.
I know I asked the finishing up question there, but that was mainly just to get us back on track.
Yeah, so the timeline issue is probably a critical one. My recommendation is to stick with it, to listen to the developers, hear what they have to say. If we need to extend it, we will. Just to create that sense of urgency. And I don't disagree that extending it makes sense.
I'm 15 more days
And it probably will.
before it even gets published.
Then we'll be doing, I suspect that.
Well, I want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity, because it may take a little time to get the buzz out there, you know? I don't want anybody to say we hurried up and we selected somebody and we selected the wrong person.
So John, what were you saying? What effect
His
does the
recommendation
50
was
day
that-
push
go
do
ahead.
that you're concerned about? In terms of.
It's not.
This is our timeline out, one council meeting, right? One council meeting, 14 days is one council meeting. I don't know if there's something that we're missing that we wouldn't.
So if I might add a few
Sure.
things, so there's interviews built into the timeline and John hasn't quite touched on that, so. So right now, the way it's written, it opens Friday and it closes March 25th. So that's just over a month and a few days. And then we review for 2 weeks, which includes a council meeting within that. So council would get the opportunity to look at all of the submitted qualifications, discuss that, staff would look at all of the qualifications. And then on April 20th, we would have interviews with selected developers at a public meeting. So built in, there is multiple council meetings for time, opportunity to review, ask questions.
So what's the deadline between our, you said it's just over a month, but our first reviews of interviews, how many days did you say?
So responses are due on the 25th of March.
Okay,
And then in the timeline, we say review is from the 25th to April 8th. We look at all the submittals.
so why couldn't we just leave it open until April 1st?
And then push everything.
And then we got a week of, you know, I mean,
That just gives them a few extra days and
yeah, I mean,
Well, and that's part of something like John and I were kind of discussing, which is that you can't kind of go backwards either. We can't go back to the drawing board once we've, had these applicants. So I think getting the most time that we can to make sure we get a good pool of applicants is important.
yes, that's why, yeah, I mean, should even,
Well, and one of the rights we're reserving, one of them is to cancel, revise, or extend, or reject all of them.
April 1st is a Friday. So that would-
We're also reserving the right to work with more than one of them at the same time, right? If we see 2 developers that might make a good fit in combination, we can try to patch our relationship together, work with that. So the city has the most flexibility in this.
Well, and so this is not just this is for the whole thing. This could be also the parcels as well.
We are soliciting for a master developer if, and ideally we get that. But if we see a
Because
combination of
realistically, there's
developers that
8
might work really well, a hotel and somebody else, or
Because there's like 8 parcels the way we have it drawn up. So there literally could be 8 different competitors building down here. Or
under
4.
one master developer. They may have some strategic reasons to approach that as far as.
Well, the city is ultimately the master developer. No matter what, the approval has to come through us.
for sure. That comes out through the.
I mean, that just
That's
needs to be
negotiated.
stated, yes, that
That's
needs to be stated, you know. And I know that through this process, there are probably gonna be some people that are saying that you, it's again, a return on investment. We need to be, John, we need to be enthralled and educated through how Independence did this. And I don't feel like any of us have enough information right now for that moving forward. I see you're looking at your timeline there.
No, it's not the timeline I'm looking at. I'm looking at that, what we're expecting of the developer. It's to, one of the questions is, how is this good for St.
But
Helens?
it's not just for them, it's for us to be putting out there. That's the way they did it. That, you know, they hired actually an economist to prove that, and we're modest with the numbers, that the return on the investment, it may sound like we're giving away, because theirs was waterfront on the Willamette, may sound like we're giving away this property, but we're not. And here's how we're not. This is the return on your investment.
But until we have the proposal at hand, we can't.
Yes.
evaluate
Can't make
return.
those
But
numbers,
we,
yeah.
yeah.
And that's part of the evaluation process, or it could be.
So we're gonna be like lots of meetings and lots of, our brains are just gonna be all jumbled with information here.
And we're asking the developers to tell us how it's good for the city. As from their perspective, we can evaluate it in our own way, but.
Yeah.
As far as spreading the news out,
Bigger projects than
it
this.
is a holiday weekend, Friday holiday weekend, so we're publishing it 3 times. I just want to state that we are trying to get the word out to anybody. You can share it to any developer friends. We're not trying to appeal to a
Yes.
certain developer. This is absolutely open and transparent.
Yeah.
And on Friday, you know, it's my goal to send it to all the developers we work with thus far. And we've engaged through the street extension project with at least 4 who are interested in the site. And that's kind of what I was thinking when Topaz was talking about problems. They didn't bring up any particular problem at that time. And also noted that the street alignment was in line with something they would expect. So we have touched base with developers who do this type of development. You know, we're not going in blindly when we design the street. So I just wanted to state that. Yeah, really excited about this, so.
Yes, you've worked very diligently with John, but you've been in a lot of different meetings, and then John, keeping John in the queue and on this project. Good job, Jenny.
Well, I'm excited to see what kind of fish our bait bring in. I'm very excited, so thank you guys for your hard work on this.
Yeah, so I moved it to April 1st. That sounds like a good suggestion. It gives a little bit more time, but it doesn't change it drastically from what we've presented.
Give it a few more days, you know, put it at the end of Friday.
April Fools.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Sean, did you have anything else you want to hit on this, before we take our break? I know we're having we'll do your report, unless you want to do it later.
No, well. I'll do it when we come back from break.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and take a 10-minute recess.
Yeah.
Sorry, we hijacked you there a little.
No, it's your.
I really
Okay, welcome back under the recess. And now we'll go on to our city administrators report. Ron Walsh.
All right, well, thank you. Yeah. We should have that. Let's see.
We're thinking about that, were you?
You're a little ahead of me right there, back. Okay, yeah, well, yes, congratulations getting this RFQ out to bid. That it is a, it really sets a landmark. Internally, it's a landmark. It's going to set off for some events that kind of hopefully bring us all together and get us in a good path. Part of that discussion we've been talking internally is the general scope of the street extension project, the Riverwalk extension project, the improvements in Columbia View Park. And the council's seen bits and pieces of this all the way through. But really, the place we started was picking the OTAC and Mayor Reed to design the streets and Mayor Reed to design the Riverwalk. There's been some check-ins with that, but there really hasn't been a holistic re-check-in with the council. There's the stage in Columbia View Park, the features that are in the Riverwalk itself, and the phasing of that, the orientation of the stage, the extension of the playground that we just most recently looked at, how that the extension of Cowlitz, how that has a turnaround feature in there. That's things that weren't contemplated at the beginning of this process. The one-way street piece that comes northbound, ties the plaza, changes the parking, takes the upper deck of the Columbia View Park Plaza, makes it a lot bigger and to a pedestrian plaza at the top side of the park right there. Were all things that were been informed of along the way, but you've never really officially visited those publicly. And we think that it would be a really good idea to do that. And so we're looking at not just that, but the features in the Riverwalk as far as intersection improvements. What are the, we're doing these curb bulb-out extensions. Internally, we're looking at the street treatments as far as concrete blocks versus colored concrete versus the saw cutting, the joints, and not going too deep into it, but really just an opportunity to share that level of vision, detail. We're modeling after some other really cool places. Some of it stuff is at some point it's kind of a issue of cost, perhaps, and trade-offs. But by and large, we're looking at creating some real central core improvements around St. Helens, Cowlitz at the water, Cowlitz at Strand, Cowlitz at the water, even Cowlitz at First, as being this really iconic, really cool place. Mm-hmm. Planning Commission has seen some of these bits. The council's seen a lot of it. We've had public opportunities to look at some of those renderings and things. And the thought was that we'd have a joint meeting with the Planning Commission and the City Council, have OTAC and Mayor Reed kind of tell the story, just kind of walk it all through from the interpretive signage that's plan that's developed. There's a whole narrative around that you haven't shared with you. And yeah, so looking for a date, probably sometime during, the sooner the better. I think that and sometime before the plans are complete for sure. And if it overlaps with the developer's interest in the property, that's even better. I think there's it's not a core thing, but it shows that developer community leaders. We're working on this. It's coming to a head. It's all good energy coming together. So long story short, Joint Planning Commission sometime second meeting in March, first meeting in April, second meeting in April at the latest. Probably could do it here, maybe somewhere else.
Second meeting in March works.
Second meeting in March.
16th.
Could be.
Should we do it here or will we have enough room? Because I imagine it'll generate some buzz.
And it may,
Public.
We might,
and it may.
Yeah, yeah, so I don't know if this would be maybe a rec center.
Mary Leather.
That makes it challenging, and it's also an opportunity to get the story told live, so there's value in having it be
Here,
here and be
Yes.
recorded and something to come back and revisit.
I think we could do it. I mean, we've done it before, but you know, I'm just thinking of when we had the Riverwalk and we had the joint meeting with the commission and not the Riverwalk, the River Connector.
Are we unable to record the meeting at the rec center?
It's
Yeah,
difficult.
we're not able to.
Oh, really?
And it's like a tape recorder kind of stuff, but
It wouldn't work.
Okay.
The library isn't connected either, is it?
I think if we were able to move the chair out there for sign up, the table out there for sign up, we could make this area work.
Yeah, there's a,
You guys could be up there.
We might have to, yeah. Make
I got-
room.
we got called under the bus one time when we had, I think when you first came aboard with the issue of the soda tax. And there were 48, 50 people out there and there were signs and everything else. And so I got called under the bus. I don't know if you knew that or not, that, well, we didn't, yeah, the capacity from the fire people and all of that. I mean, it was no big deal. I don't know how to get around that other than I've been to this setting years and years ago regarding Gable Road. I mean, years ago, it was, I believe in the 80s. And there was individuals out on the street who could come in if they were on the agenda to talk. And, or if they had something to talk about, they were allowed in. So there is that for public opinions and public comment. But for what we're doing, it's totally different. We want to get information out. We want to involve as many people as we can. So I'm not certain what the answer is.
The advantage now, the advantage now is we do have Zoom and YouTube, where we didn't have that before.
Yeah, good.
It could be this, it's just, you know, the public participation is virtual. If there's enough people in the room that we just have the planning commission and the council preferably sitting around one table, so you don't have this dais dynamic. And
But it's an unutilized space then. I mean, I think every seat's gonna count. I can see the planning commission one row right there, going that way. That allows them to present to all of us right in this area. You know?
My concern with with doing just public comment via Zoom is it kind of alienates the population to people that can attend via Zoom.
Well, and I think if we got that, we have a whole back row back there and maybe another little part of a row for the people who are presenting, you know, a couple of rows there still. With require moving some chairs, we've got too many chairs in here, move that table out of here. We can make it work.
It still isn't community. It's kind of fixed, but it's not really.
yeah, it's not the ideal space to have a meeting, a joint meeting with a lot of people. But the value is having it recorded, and also, yeah, you can have some people in the room, but I think we could.
It'll be advertised to where people can make comments, send comments in, you know, for the record.
You want to have this dynamic, the planning commission around a different table. Presenters in the middle, maybe.
You still need a big room. It'd be easy to figure out how to record it in a big room.
Well, I just know the second week of March or the second meeting of March actually works for us. It would be a good time to.
My concern is that it's the quality control on the Zoom and that presentation is at the utmost. So if that's sacrificed and if we leave and go somewhere else, I'm not certain if the quality is going to be there, and I think it's the utmost importance that the quality is there.
Yeah, and the purpose of the meeting is to share information. It's not a public hearing,
Yeah.
or a decision on the table. It's the beginning of a conversation perhaps, or just reaffirmation.
Well, other than elected officials who are appointed to do that, I mean, we're both, they're
Yeah, there's more and
quasi
more to see with those plans.
judicial,
Right.
we're quasi judicial on, with our planning commission, so I think it definitely, yes,
Yeah, it's not a public hearing about a development proposal.
yeah, yeah.
It's just a,
So I think we'd be okay. I think we'd be okay here.
I do too.
sure. We'll make it happen.
Get some food that day.
Please.
I'm okay, I can eat just about anything.
What time do you want it to be at?
Well, I'm guessing we always go till at least 3 in this meeting, so probably, we always go till actually 4. So 5,
Or if you do an hour, if there's no public hearing scheduled, we could do it at 6. or before.
Yeah, can we cancel our,
let's do 5:30. And they can show up early if they want to. 5:30 to 6:45, because I know it'll take an hour and 15 minutes. We'll love that.
we could also.
Does it have to be a
cancel
council
the
meeting?
Substitute. Go ahead.
It'll just be a special meeting, so we can arrange it, and not get caught with time on either end.
Yeah, I mean, we can go longer if we need to, like Doug was saying, we could just go, it's happened on other meetings where we've actually not opened our regular session till 9 o'clock, I think, on 1, maybe even later.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Remember?
I kind of think that we could cancel, if there is anything pressing, we could cancel the evening meeting and replace it with.
Well, we wouldn't cancel it because we'd have something to adopt, but we could, but there's usually only an hour tops, our meeting, so I'm okay with if it runs
Okay.
longer.
Okay.
But 5:30, we'll shoot for 5:30 to 6:45. If it goes longer, we'll take the time to go longer.
All right, thank you. I think that's gonna be a valuable effort and good to touch point with the community. Still working, having weekly meetings about the public safety facility, that's moving along. All the user groups that are gonna be proposed to work in the building are actively engaged in the space planning flow and how that all works to make sure that people that are gonna be in there every day are gonna be their needs met. In the larger industrial park, we've kicked off that effort. We've engaged with PGE. We're back having active discussions about the location of the substation, that footprint, and there's some pretty candid conversations around that as far as opinions. We're working through it. Everybody's been.
And they're prepared to step up, because it seems like,
Oh yeah, no, that's
All right.
yeah,
just come in.
yeah. They've been most helpful.
Good.
And,
How much freedom do they have to move that around, or are they pretty limited?
well, what was surprising to me is how big the footprint is on the new one. It's like 5 times bigger than the existing footprint, maybe more, several acres.
Yeah,
We want to lease it then?
We haven't got that for you.
New safety equipment, and stuff like that, they get built in.
Yeah.
We also have very lousy power around here. The amount of noise coming down the power line is terrible.
The responsible boating community, the group working on the docks, is continuing to make really good progress. We went through at our last meeting all the ordinance revisions. The kiosk showed up the other day, so the kiosk is here. We've got the programming underway, the contracts and things surrounding that. Still have some relationships to build with the county as far as enforcement of the docks, enforcement of Sand Island, things of that. As part of this conversation is one, creating all the tools to have the enforcement, and half of that, a good portion of that's just civil parking tickets, infractions, and these complaints and things like that. But the other piece is when there's a crime down there, who's going to respond, and both on the docks and in the island. So we're contemplated this role of having a dock master, harbor master, contract person. St. Helens Marine is very interested in that role if that comes to that, which is encouraging. All heading in a good direction. So you should see the revisions to the dock ordinance, chapter 8, coming through. It's going to legal right now. That'll come back to us, and you'll see it here.
And just so the council knows, that for us to try to do that ourselves, as far as getting a boat, getting officers trained, was a lot more than originally we anticipated.
We tried that before.
Well, I recall when I spoke to the chief and he's like, we really don't want to do this, so.
So the idea would be,
Solution.
the idea, of course, is to incentivize the county probably with, just so you guys are aware, with budget cycle coming up, and this probably be a recommendation from the committee and however we negotiate with Sheriff Bixley. That anticipate something there.
Sure.
Is there any leeway on that to get to the Marine Board and ask for some compensation for what we're doing there by chance?
Well, there's definitely some engagement required around the charging of fees for the use of the docks. That they know we're thinking about it and they're expecting it to come back to them. So there's not going to be any surprises there. There's also some offers of funding for the cameras. Our IT folks are kind of looking at what that means to have cameras down on the docks and potentially tying it into the kiosk wireless system there so it can all work together and have the retention and enforcement, things of that nature. But yes, there's still a loop with the Marine Board that needs to be.
Yeah, the kiosk is right now. Can you take a picture of it and put it in the newspaper? Because a lot of people in town are thinking we're not doing anything. Because you say, hey, it's here, kids. There's a PR go. It's not in place. This is what it looks like.
Well, I think we should be careful with that because we don't exactly have a full plan
Yeah, we'll
yet
make sure we have the.
for how to enforce the
I
kiosk.
know, I'm just worried. This is what the equipment looks like. That's all I want to say. It's here.
Get these meetings done in a price, and we kind of got a price point, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, talking about budget, with Matt and I have met with all the departments, heard their budget requests. Trying to build in, looking to the future and what's going along around the region with inflation and how that affects labor costs, and just doing some scenario planning around that about what's realistic and how we can still stay on the graph in our 5-year plan without dropping off a cliff. And and that's general fund services, that's enterprise funds, all of that, just trying to find what's enough to get by kind of thing.
What do you expect to use inflation? Which is a fairy tale, but what are you trying for?
I know that City of Portland employees negotiated like a 7%.
Yeah,
COLA, which is
And
very impactful.
they said inflation was 9%, they settled on 7%, I think.
So more to come on that. But we're thinking about it, right? So, and what that looks like in budget committee land is must have some priorities and like to have some list on the side. But we can.
Like I said, that little pool of money we're all fighting over.
Now, the governor said they had this huge improvement in tax collection for the state.
The state did, but they're also in debt, they're just ignoring it.
I was gonna say, do they really have good money or is it just?
Ask her about PERS, write a letter to her, say, I'd like a response on PERS. And why you have all this extra money, how? Because you don't.
Well, it's not really extra money.
Well, that's what they're saying, you know, all kinds of money to spend.
More than the 1% budget. After this meeting, we're going to do library director interview debrief.
Yes, I have.
Which will be a continuation of the last executive session. Then we'll shut down that executive session and go into.
We recessed our last executive session, and I have all the script here. Anybody's questioning that?
Sitting.
Yep.
Okay, you got it.
Yep.
sit with a number of other, just numerous other distractions that are taking time away from. So,
My question, John, I was reading through our agenda for regular session tonight. Could you please chime in about exactly what's going on with that cat loan payoff? It's new to me, so I'm not really aware of it, and I do see that we're voting on it tonight, so I'm just curious about it.
Is that the water bill?
No.
No, they're paying us off for a loan that we gave them for the transitional housing. Is that, it was hard for me to read. That's why I was hoping that John could brief us.
yeah, I don't know the details of it, but I do know that we have these liens that go on and they come up, they get paid off. They're usually through a sale of the property or something that come back to the city.
So, yeah, I think, I mean, Jen and I, we've got one that we're gonna have to pay off, and I believe, so we through community action team got a loan to weatherize, re-roof and do improvements on our house. And it's an interest-free loan. But we will have to pay it back, and that's probably coming up in a few, we pay it back, so that goes back into the pool. But I think it's because, but there's a lien on our property for that, so I think it's just kind of an administrative.
There's a number of those.
So it's a similar sort of, it sounds like this is a similar sort of thing.
I think it's a little bit different.
A little bit.
Exactly.
Kathy, did you, okay.
It's exactly like that.
That's exactly how.
It is exactly like that?
Yeah.
Okay, hey, I finally said something
So it goes to
that way.
the cat administers the loan, someone pays cat back, and then cat pays us.
They actually, when they are selling the home, the check actually comes to us. We deposit it and then we turn around and send Cat a check back to go in the revolving loan fund.
Okay, so that's what's happening with this, because it looked like we were getting the funds.
We do get the funds, but then we turn around and give them back to Cat so that.
It's a weatherization program,
It's
right?
called the revolving loan fund.
Okay.
And it's used for all kinds of things, including like people who need a handicap ramp built or, they're usually a little more significant, but the funds are definitely something that has been used very regularly and has been a benefit to the community.
I'm aware of the funds from Community Action Team, working in the fields that I work in, but I didn't realize the city had any play on that. That's why I was curious about it.
Pass through.
It's been going on for years, so there's just this, the funds just keep circulating.
Interesting.
Kathy, why does the city get involved? Is it a legal requirement?
Well, it's technically our money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's just that CAT administers it,
Right.
okay. Because why doesn't CAT do the whole thing?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, they have to sponsor the qualifying agencies.
They're able to vet. Yeah, they're able to vet. Yep.
Take the federal funds, come through to your county.
We'll see more of
They go back to
these
CAT.
in the future.
Yeah, they're
They
very
do
friendly.
see them occasionally.
From you?
My name on it. Our name on it eventually.
Okay.
Anything else to report on? Okay, so before I end this meeting, I want to make an announcement that I will actually be going back in from a recess from our meeting on February 11th, 2022. Under ORS 8, consider employment of a public officer, specifically a library director, so we can do our deliberations. And also, are we going to need to go into executive session under any other business, John? As announced?
Yeah.
Okay, so as,
It'll be a separate meeting.
yeah, it'll be a separate meeting after, we're gonna actually go into deliberations over the library. And then following that, we'll be going into an executive session under ORS 192. 0.6602 E, real property transaction, and H, consulting with counsel, potential litigation. So with that, we are adjourned.